Good evening, everybody. I hope you're all well, or if you've been poorly, I hope you're on the way to recovery. We're thinking of everybody at the moment. It's a really tricky time, isn't it? It's a really strange time, but I just want to encourage us all at the moment that even in the midst of this, that God is with us. And this morning I was just thinking about what I could say, and I really thought of the story of Shadrach, Meshach and Abednego. I'm just going to read that to you now. And so we start where they had refused to bow down to other gods. And Nebuchadnezzar was so furious with Shadrach, Meshach and Abednego that his face became distorted with rage, and he commanded that the furnace be heated 7 times hotter than usual. Then he ordered some of the strongest men of his army to bind Shadrach, Meshach and Abednego and throw them into the blazing furnace. So they tied them up and threw them in the furnace, fully dressed. And because the king in his anger had demanded such a hot fire, the flames killed the soldiers as they threw the 3 men in. So Shadrach, Meshach and Abednego, securely tied, fell into the roaring flames. But suddenly Nebuchadnezzar jumped up in amazement and exclaimed to his advisers, "Didn't we tie up 3 men and throw them in the furnace?" "Yes, your majesty, we certainly did," they replied. "Look," Nebuchadnezzar shouted, "I see 4 men, unbound and walking around in the fire unharmed, and the 4th looks like a god." And as I read that, I just remembered, or it just came so clearly to me, that in the midst of this, that God is with us. In the midst of the fiery furnace, which it feels like we're in at the moment, God is with us. And it just really spoke to me that we're not just waiting for God to move. We're not waiting for a future event, although we're hoping revival is coming, but we're actually thinking right now, where we are at home in this situation, Jesus is right in the middle with us. We're not a people who are abandoned or left alone. God is with us. And as I read that story, I just wondered what it would look like today. In our version of the fiery furnace, the media and scientists have such a lot to say, but I think as Christians it's really important that we also get God's perspective on what's happening. And I just thought to myself that what would it be like if the scientists and the media were standing watching Shadrach, Meshach and Abednego? They would probably be saying things like, statistically it's impossible these men will come out alive. And the media will probably have some amazing headline about these people will never survive. But actually, from God's perspective, he had a different view, because he had a different outcome. And I just think it's really important at the moment that we listen, and we are wise. We must follow government directives, and we listen to the scientific reports, because sometimes they're useful, but we balance that out with what God is saying. And I would really, really encourage you to listen to what some of the prophets are saying at this time. Listen to Sean Bolts or Chuck Pierce, and just listen to their perspective on what they feel that God is saying about the coronavirus. And I would also just encourage you as well, just in times when you're praying or reflecting, just to ask God, what's your perspective on this? What are your plans for this? Because we know, don't we, that God is for us, not against us, that God has a great plan for this country and a great plan for his church. So I would just really encourage you at this time that to be wise, to stay at home as much as you can, to look after yourselves, to look after your families, but also don't lose hope. Don't lose hope, because our God has great plans for us, great plans for our church, and great plans for our country. Stay safe, and God bless you all.